Previously on Represented.
When you have enough silence around you to think and hear, it allowed me to process like stuff I hadn't processed for 10 years. And that's wild to me because it's like, what was I doing trying to grow up? But also just, it allowed me to tell my story, even if people don't understand, but tell it in a way that also allowed me to heal as I told it. Which I think is like super important, which is why I'm just like, I'd rather have lost my voice and not sung anything before I opened my mouth to say stuff that would have damaged everyone involved, and including me, and made it like a history of blame, you know? Because like with the talk, I ended up writing a song called Enough. And the song says, the first two lines say, blame is a name game. The truth is I'm at the end of my rope with it. Because I think with anything you go through in life, you're always looking for somewhere to pinpoint it or tag it to something, you know? But I was just like, yo, man, I'm tired of looking for a reason to say it was this or this and that and this. I'm like, here I am, and all I want from this is to know that I am enough. It's funny when you lose your voice as a musician, you're like, ooh, wait, see, I sing. Oh my God, how am I going to make money? Oh my God, how am I going to, or you break your arm as a guitarist or whatever. You immediately like, man, I'm about to suffer. It's wild. Instead of being like, maybe my body's trying to tell me something. Maybe I'm not okay. Maybe I need to actually just sit still and not do anything for a hot second before I think about what I'm going to say next.
As a disclaimer, some of our episodes discuss topics that may not be fit for a younger audience. Some episodes also contain some swearing. This show was produced by the Geek Happy Network, constantly curious about the things we love. If you enjoy listening to Represented, remember to subscribe to the show on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Remember to leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Hi, I'm Jamie Mack. Welcome to the Represented Podcast.
My name is Mick Narciso, and you are listening to the Represented Podcast.
What's up? My name is Robert Mudhama, aka Lucid.
Hi everyone, my name is Noni Rupia, and you're listening to Represented Podcast.
A journey through the lives of everyday people such as yourself.
Check me out on episode 2 of season 1.
Listen to me on episode 9, season 1.
Episode 7 of season 1.
I think I couldn't be more happier and more like myself now.
It opened my eyes to why I think and feel the way I do.
And they inadvertently teach me how to be more creative.
And I'm excited to share that story.
And so doing that, and for those 2 months, and it's funny because it wasn't gone for the 2 months, thank goodness. But by the time I came out of it, I was like, okay with not having the gigs, with not doing anything, and figuring out what's actually going on inside me, to even make a song like that, to even write a speech about singing a song of forgiveness, you know, and remembering to keep singing it whenever you feel that pain. So I'm thankful for it, and it was wild because I had to adjust to so many things. On the one hand, I'm being asked, renew your passport, renew your driver's license, do this, do that, open a bank account again, check if it's still there, change your signature, because I haven't changed anything since I was 18. So I was just like, hey, I'm tired. I feel like it's so much demanding from me, you know, and then also the expectation of, so you're here now, what?
What now? Yeah,
What are you going to do next, you know?
Now? Yeah.
What are you going to, and the suggestions of what you should do, and you're just like, man, you haven't even asked me if I'm okay. So yeah, I think it was its own thing, and I found that it's like a puppy. You know, when you get a dog like when it's helpless, it's like okay, and then it starts going to that phase where it wants to eat everything and run around and just like please slow down, please. I'm just asking you to be a guard dog. I don't need all this part. But then it's also fun to play with, and then it starts maturing, and now you're like, okay, you have some sense of self. And I think that's when you get okay with the moments of silence. I think that's when you start knowing, maybe I might be ready to grow a bit more than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, man, I swear it's like, I feel like you're telling my story for me at this
Could be
point.
like, so,
it's
Kenya Kia.
man, I can relate to every single step of that whole
Yeah.
journey you just described. And it's so, I guess, because I don't get the chance to speak to many people about that specific experience so often. But when I do, it's always a reminder that I'm not insane. And that like
Not
that
at
stuff
all.
is actually happening. And I think it's kind of important for us as like people who've been through it to talk more about it, because I think I still see, I mean, of course, still today there's still people who will hop on a plane and go to the States or go to Canada or go wherever with the delusions that we go there with. And I don't think many people take the time to explain to them just what's, I mean, you can't really save anyone from anything,
can't.
but it would be nice to maybe ask them a few questions about what they're about to go through, and just, I guess be like someone they can go to, because like you said, when you're there, sometimes you don't really have someone to go to, and it's so crazy. I have a friend that I spoke to for a few weeks ago on this platform, and he spent 2 years in Vancouver, ended up coming back because he couldn't take it.
Wow.
So it's like,
wow.
and he was telling me how while we were recording, he was like, he realized he hasn't thought about this ever since.
Wow.
So I was like, that's crazy. Like, that does happen, because he went there and it was like, and funny enough, he was one of the people who really like, I didn't know a Vancouver existed before he said the word Vancouver.
So he was
He was the point
catalyst.
of, So I was like, and we were so excited. I remember being in high school and just before, when we're finishing IB, we're all excited to be traveling abroad and all this stuff. And he was like the main champion, and he happened to come back so much sooner than all of us.
And you were all like, wait, what?
Yeah, like what happened? Like I
Right.
literally had no context as to why, why he came back. But the more I lived there,
Then you're like,
the
I
more
get
I
it.
understood. I'm like, yeah, I get why someone would pull the eject button. Like, it's so, and it's not as simple as some people might try to paint it, because like
Right.
you can think it's someone giving up or whatever, but there's so much that goes into that leaving home thing.
Much.
Yeah.
Because also like it's literally uprooting your whole life and moving somewhere else to build another life. And then when you decide to come home, you're uprooting that life to come back here and start again. So, but I think as human beings, we should be ready at any point, at least prep ourselves for that to happen often. Because I think even just with milestones, whether it's you getting married, there's nothing like that that's going to happen again. Or your first child, no one will prep you for those things, because it's going to be your own personal experience, And I think that's like starting again in its own context, figuring yourself out in that place, So that's what you need.
Yeah.
And going to work. And the thing is, like, you'll never belong there. And I think that's what people need to be okay with. Like, you familiarize yourself with it. And that's so different from you being from there. Like, there's no way, even if you live there for 20 years, in the end, your passport says what? Kenyan.
Yeah.
And that's what you are. Even if you might not be too happy with where you are coming from, you still have great things about you that are from there. And I think choosing to come back shouldn't mean that, like, you've lost. You know what I mean? Like, it's just another part of a wider story you're telling. Because I think maybe right now, this is what is necessary to the next part. If you leave or if you stay, what if it's the thing that was the catalyst to what you're going to do, I think that's the thing. Sometimes we're so used to being so short-sighted. So it might be like, you guys remember how you were saying just now that you guys didn't understand why he came back then. But then you went and you were there and you were like, even me now. Not because of him, not because you talked to him or whatever, but you're like, I can come back now. And then there are people who'll be there and they're thinking about this and they're like, I'm not sure if I want to come back. The struggle is real. I'm like, you're still struggling out there. So pick your struggle. And they might be like, okay, maybe it's comforting to know that I can come back home. I'm not lost as such. I'm not a loser because I've decided to. And neither am I a winner because I'm choosing to stay. It's just, where do I need to be, you know, and be where your feet are, you know?
Yeah. So where are you at right now with having been home? So you've been home for how long so far now?
It's about to be a year.
A year, yeah. Cool. Same here. A year and 3
Some
months.
change.
Yeah. Nice. So where are you at with being home and all that?
Honestly, like, I think what I've decided, just with how much I've talked about nature and animals, to sound like a flower child. But I've decided to find ways to explore Kenya for myself. Because I think we can talk about it so much, but we forget. Ooh, someone taught me something. Agatha, bless you. She said, why don't you talk about the beauty in something before you talk about its brokenness? And I've been using that lesson since last year, because it's easy for us to complain about Kenya and complain about all things that are not working and our leaders.
Yeah.
So
Serikali.
naomba serikali. No more ombang, man. But we forget the beauty of this place. Like, I went to, what's this place called? Kereta. And we went ziplining. And man, like, even before we started, it had been raining, and you see like steam percolating from the forest, and your view is like miles, where it's like the Kenya agroforestry, they have a space, that's where the ziplining happened. And all these evergreens, and I was just like, guys, this is like a movie. It looks like a movie, and I love it. It was so, like, I was yelling for my life on the zipline. But I was like, it's so beautiful, like completely life altering. Like, once you do it, even outside of doing the ziplining, just standing there and looking at it, and it wasn't that it was tiny or whatever, it was so beautiful. And I was like, guys, we might complain a lot, but we live in a really beautiful place. And do I know a lot about it, you know, even if it's looking for our history, which is buried in so many different places, which is also raggedy, but just learning more about this place, you know, and seeing it. Excuse me. I just decided for myself, I want to do that as best as I can. So even with another friend of mine were like, where do you want to go next? And I was like, have you been to the geothermal spa? I'm like, we're going to hit up Olkaria.
I've heard so much about it too.
You see? So I'm just like, it's not that it's that expensive. It's just choosing to be willing to explore. Before guys are talking about, have you been to Niagara Falls? And you see, I'm like, these guys go and see their country. I'm like, we have so many good things here. You know, even if it's just deciding with your friends, look around and enjoy it. Actually, like, you forget to enjoy it because you're complaining about so freaking much. And I'm like, you forget, you start to remember and associate with the brokenness more than you associate with the beauty. So that's one thing. Another thing I've just decided is, like, go at your own pace. I can't say my career looks the same as anyone else's, but it doesn't mean I should hinder other people's just because I'm also in the same place as them. So I've decided to support my friends. I was doing it before anyway. So yeah, I have friends who are making great music, both here, both even outside.
Yeah. I mean, and side note, but not so side note, you make amazing music. Just want to make sure I say that on here.
Thank you.
streaming thingy, like check out Lisa's music. Just shout out to you for being amazing at what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like half overwhelmed. I'm trying not to like sigh so much. But yeah, just deciding to support my friends. I think, like I said, being comfortable with the silence. So like this year, I've kind of been feeling like I don't really have much to write as such, but just listening. So I've been listening to a lot of different projects. People's music, like I was talking about Mac Miller's new album and stuff, and I was listening to another chick called Victoria Monet in the States, but also listening to like Kenyan music.
What's the
And
Kenyan
seeing-
music scene like in your eyes?
Oh, depends. There's different parts to it, you know. There's I guess what people would call mainstream. I guess like in Octo, Calligraph, all that. And it's a different world, I assure you. But I think for every musician, there's an audience. So, like for me, people would think, oh, you're a niche musician. It's because I'm singer-songwriter. And there are not as many venues. But they might call you to play and be like, yeah, I can play for this hotel, do a couple of covers and things like that. And then it's interesting because in your head, you're like, okay, so am I niche or am I not? Or what is this? But at the same time, there's that whole arena. And then there's the flip side where you have folks who are like balancing the two. Like they'll make a hit, but then they'll also make music that's just for them, you know? So I think it's growing. I think there are a lot more musicians than before I left, which I'm glad, because I think something so important is knowing when to give people space. Don't stay and become the ceiling. Because I'm like, if the place where you are is not growing, then why are you there? You need to make room for other people. You're not like, at the end of the day, you might be the top right now, but there needs to be another one. It needs to be getting better. At least that's what I believe. I know I'm not going to be the best singer in the world, and I'm okay with it. If there's someone who is, I guess, learns from me or inspires someone, I'm like, shoot, that's my job. That's it. Because I don't think we're supposed to be ceilings. We're never supposed to be the end that is us, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, then what was the use of having kids for people?
Yeah, right? Continuity.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I'm like, just like that, Derek Silvers, the thing I told you, and how he put it forward, like in his book, that once his company has fulfilled what it's supposed to, why am I keeping it going? And it was so interesting because he's like, his company did great. CD Baby is like huge. Like he's the guy who opened up the door for things like DistroKid and all these different streaming places for musicians to put their music instead of having to go and beg at record labels to like, it's my CD, check my CD out, you know, like before. And he's like, it did its job. That's it. If someone else makes something better and has used mine as a format, great. Do better. Make it better. Make it easier, you know. So yeah, I think I'm a firm believer in that, because I'm just like, if we're all ceilings, then we create a bottleneck, and that makes everything harder.
Yeah.
Because then you have frustration on the lower end, and then there's me. I'm trying to look for people or I misuse the people who I'm supposed to be building.
Yeah.
And I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always been that thoughtful about how you live your life? Like, are there people who showed you glimpses of what knowing yourself is like, and that's why you decided to know yourself? Or it's like, how do you get here, you know?
That's a really good question. I think I've always, first, I'm an overthinker, so can be in my head for days, which is a plus and a minus, because you can think so much to the point where you isolate yourself. So you feel...
Stop talking about me.
I said, let me just like, ooh. Yeah, so there's that. And then I had a teacher called, Armstead Christian. And he was one of the first people I met when I even walked onto the Berklee campus before school started. And that man changed my life. I went for a workshop that he was doing on campus. It was just me and another Kenyan. And he was like, you guys coming in? And I said, yeah. First I saw him outside and I was like, oh, I don't know if he's sick or something. He came in and he had a class called Flowology. And it was so interesting because it was about like, it was spoken word, but actually teaching you how to write and your prose and everything, you know. So you'd be learning how to do the spoken word, but then it's like you're also learning so much about yourself, because that man was like a teacher at the same time as, like, you felt like he was your dad, like everything. And so I finished that symposium thing, workshop, and he was like, "You gonna be in my class this year?" And I said, "Definitely." Me starting first semester, his classes are for second, third, fourth. Yeah. Thankfully, you saved my life. I could start, like, because of the year I'd done there. It's so funny. Like, I'm telling you, everything in life is like a setup for something else. Because it's like God just sets you up, man. Because he, like, literally, I did that year. Man, I wasn't even thinking. And then I was like, wait, this is an American university.
Okay.
Me, when I entered, I was just like, I'm
Yeah.
looking to go to school. Only for it to set me up to be like
Yeah.
tons of credits ahead, like a whole semester ahead. So I was in my second
You
semester.
qualified, yeah.
Right. So I couldn't get in that semester because it was full, and people love that guy. His classes were always full. And then I said, yo, I have to get in this class, because I found out he had a disease called sarcoidosis. And your lungs basically are shutting down from the get-go. So he had been managing it, and I was like, it's winter, and that was the worst winter we'd had. So I was like, oh man, he must have been having a rough time. So we get to fall semester, and I get the class, and oh my word, I don't think I've sung that freely in my life. Like, he even said, it's like, I was singing, and it would just be, the accompanist was a great dude. His name was Jeff something. But he was so nice, and you just go with your sheet music, and you stand in the middle and you sing with a pianist. Initially, he could tell I was just like freaking out, and he's like, "Don't worry, we'll come in next week." You see, he's like, "Okay." And there's one day I went to class, and I was just feeling so good, and I sang, and I didn't feel any anxiety, I didn't feel any nervousness, and I sang, and he stopped and he looked at me and he was crying.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wild. I was like, you know, you're just like, what just happened? I'd never felt like that. And then he said, that thing you keep on doing, do it like that. And then he said, the thing about this, before that week, he had said, the thing about this thing you do, we're not supposed to, like, cordon people off. Every time you sing, it's like welcoming someone into your living room. They're guests, right? And you choose what you show them, you know? When we bundle ourselves up, we show them we're afraid of them. And they feel that. And I was like, interesting. So after that, when I sang like that, oh man, I was like, yo, I want to keep doing and feeling like this. And he was like, do that thing like that, and don't let anyone tell you different. And I was like, wow, this is wild for me. And the wildest thing, I was like, I have to be in his class. And at the end of that semester, he passed away.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yikes.
A wreck.
Yeah.
But it made me realize also that whatever you receive from someone, whatever lessons you can, they're all gifts. And we pass them on. You pass them on literally. Like, as I'm speaking to you, everything that he gave me, I'm giving you now.
Giving me, yeah.
And it's up to you to pass it on. And you see how it's funny, you've also been mentioning that you've been having this conversation in so many different ways. So it's also like maybe it was a setup to have this conversation as well. And I don't know what it might be leading you to, but it's something you pass on to someone else, you know? Just like your presence is a gift. You don't just decide to show up everywhere or go anywhere, you know? Like, where you show up and where you show up as fully as yourself and where you're present, people always remember that. Maya Angelou says it best, you know? People, you can do things for people, you can do all these things, but people remember how you feel, how you made them feel, you know? And I think that hit me because I was like, I never forget the things that I avoid forgetting, let's say that, the things that have literally made me feel at home, like the memories I have, even with my parents, things like all these things, they're the things that have reminded me, no, maybe I should be more like this. Maybe I should think more about this. Even in settings where, like, for example, like I mentioned earlier, how my dad was like super present in his own way, because it was, and it formed how, like, for instance, now one of my top love languages is quality time, because he was there, whether it was picking me up from school or dropping me off or being like on the way home, it's like he knows his kid loves food and has known for years. And he'd be like, you want to go get pizza? And I'm like, listen, as a 9-year-old, I was like, yeah, dude, But even now, it makes me who I am more because I value the conversations I have, even over food, or just meeting people and being with them, talking to them. Not just because of what they're doing, but I'm like, how are you actually? Like even how we've talked about certain things, and I'm like, why are you like another twin from another life? I'm like that. They're like wild things in common, and I'm like, and I've never met you. But I think that's the thing. Like I was saying earlier, like outside of the thing that I think all human beings want connection, but the other thing I think that we thrive on is common ground. So I think that's the thing. Like when I was in high school, I might not have shaped it like this, but I always wanted this, I've always wanted community. I mean, we come from a big family, and even when we're mad at each other, we'll still show up for each other. We used to have as siblings, even without cousins, game days. Like when my sisters were in college, even before they got married, and even now with their kids. Like I have a video on my phone of us playing Heads Up. And it was so wild. This is in the start of the year because my sister's born on the 1st of January. And we're playing Heads Up. And I'm like, see, it's just we were replicating what we were doing before. But it's still the same thing, that the things that I've always wanted, I think it's also so important for someone to know what's important to them. In the sense of like, what are your values? And I don't mean necessarily just your beliefs. But I mean like, what are the things that matter to you? Like, I strongly believe people should be, for me, what's important to me is integrity and communication, And when I know those things, it means I don't want to compromise on them. And I'll know when they're being infringed on. Because when you have a lot of what you don't want, you know exactly what you need, And not because I've had a lot of what I don't want. But yeah, it's that thing for like, or seeing how people may have been treated. And you're just like, I don't want to do that to people, I don't want to be a leader who talks a lot and then you guys are still suffering. We live in the same place and me, I'm okay and you're not. That doesn't make sense. That's not what we're supposed to be here for. Like we were saying earlier, we all need each other. I mean, this life in the times of Corona is teaching people that, more so just how many people are connected to you. The person who you walk down the street to shop from, the people who you meet in the supermarket, the bank teller, the person who makes your clothes, when you walk into that shop to buy those clothes. Like at any one point, there are so many people connected to you, whether you are aware of them or not. Choosing to learn is so important. Otherwise, you're doomed to repeat. Like literally, it's not even a joke. It's that thing for doing the same thing with the same set of instructions and expecting the results to be different. See, isn't that the definition of insanity? And I'm like, but that's what we do. like, or maybe it'll just like if you have a history of. Like I was saying earlier, like let's say you have a history of toxic relationships and you're like, okay, let me try it out this time again. But I've not even taken into account that I've had a ton of them, And then even more so, I haven't taken into account what they've done to me to change the way I think, to change it about what kind of person I'd pick, Instead of being like, yo, why do I keep picking these people? And maybe is it them or is it me?
It's a common denominator.
Right, exactly. And even then I'm like, am I like this because of other stuff that has happened to me? Maybe I need to take a hot second before I date people, And it's like, otherwise you just continue, same. And you're just like, okay, no, damn, it ended the same way. I can't believe I did this. No, next time, hey, I'm in this relationship, yeah, I think it's going to be great. Nope, 2 years. In fact, now, it becomes even more elongated because you're repeating, but then you're just jumping. And then sometimes and it's when it's more, like let's say you're in a toxic relationship and it lasts longer. Oh man. Like now, how much more damage is it doing to you?
You're becoming more and more jaded as you go along.
Exactly. And it's just like, you don't want to stop for a second and just be like, am I okay? Am I actually doing okay? Like, maybe this relationship is taking from me more than I know. And that's just like, even in general, with like, am I just staying in the workplace because I'm afraid to actually try something? Or am I just in the rat race and I'm trying to keep up with someone else who I think is where I should be? Why do I feel like I need to be there? And why am I not happy where I am? Because I'm like, there are people who have gone ahead. There's a reason why there's a phrase that says, we stand on the shoulders of those who have gone ahead of us, if they're willing to let you. But yeah, it's like, ask them. That's the other habit I think guys our age don't have. We're so annoyed at what has happened to us or because of our parents' HC. I'm like, have you even tried to ask them? There might be the bridge of communication, but I'm like, come down to their level. Ask them, why did you pick my mom? Why did you pick my dad? You know, why are you guys still married? You know, it's like, even if you don't get it, it gives you some frame of design. It's like, I mean, I thought she was cute. Okay, makes sense. Cool.
Move on.
Right. Or it's just like, did you ever struggle with this and this or whatever? It's like, did you start working? Why did you work first? Why, ask, because there's, even if they might not be living in the time you're in, there's something that got them through where they were. And you have that DNA. And maybe that's what you need to hear to get you going, So, yeah, like I'm telling you, my dad's grandpa dad, because he's old.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he'll never tell you when you have a question. And I think that's brilliant, because you might not be him, but he'll explain it to you. And even like I had a teacher who used to say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Even though kids are like, in high schools, you'll be told, why are you asking me such foolish questions? And you're just like, no, like she'd say, there's no stupid question. And that makes you actually even more curious to be like, wait, so you mean I can ask you, hey, I'm struggling. What is this, And I think when we forget to do that, that's when you just keep on complaining about what's wrong. But I'm like, have you learned how to fix it? What if the solution isn't in you just dealing with that problem alone? What if it comes from someone else? What if it comes from someone else who's dealt with that thing, or didn't, and they can tell you where they made mistakes. So you're like, oh, wait, I'm doing this. Let me not, maybe I should hold back, So
Do you find that you get, because it seems like you're not afraid to ask for help from what you said, do you find that you get that help, like say career-wise in music and stuff when you do ask?
Yeah. I think also knowing who to ask, because some people are there to take advantage of you 100%. But I believe that thing for people's true character will show over time. It doesn't matter, like even the decisions they make, like you that trusting your gut thing, it's real. It's so real. Like, so even when you're misinformed, usually it's going to be leaning towards the side where you're like, dang, I was right. Even about yourself, and I'm thankful to have people who have been in situations where like people might be like, are you sure you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? Like one of my friends, his name is Charles Riga, and like sometimes we'll send each other videos about mixing, and I'm like, oh, did he use this and this or whatever? And it's like, guys, this is great. Like we have an actual relationship outside of music and another one in music, and then I relate with him and his family and his wife and his son. It's like it's not just because I'm a musician, and I think that's also why it's helpful, because I think sometimes we're so used to relating to people just because we're on the same
level,
and you have no care for them. But I'm like, and like even if you ask some of my band members in Boston when we used to play together, I'd be like, no, you guys come over, I cook for you. Why don't you come and we eat pizza together? Or after the show, we'd eat food together. Because I was like, yo, I actually genuinely care about you guys. I might not be close or whatever, but I care about you guys. Like, I don't know what you're up to today, or I'll ask you, how's your day going? Do you need help with a project or something? Because I'm like, you're a whole human outside of me, and you have a whole life outside of me. So knowing who to ask, but even more so caring about them, and they'll show you that they actually care about you. Like, have you thought about this? They show up for you. Even if it's like a small gig, like someone who's really good at that is doing Gashui. And it's not just me who can say that about her, so it's great when you're like, they're not just supporting me because of what I add to them, and I think that's also the difference. It's not necessarily just because of what I can do for them. So yeah, and these are people who, this is the other thing, that whole legacy idea, because I'm like, these are people who saw me singing when I was 2013. 7 years. People who, one of my friends who I play with now, we've been friends for 14 years. So it's that one for, I I do my best to maintain relationship because it's the foundation of everything. And not maintain so that we are okay and someone is more happy than the other, but just be like, I'll give my 100 and I hope that you give me 100 back. Hopefully we can have a conversation if neither one of us is holding up our bargain, end of the bargain. And if we can have that conversation, that means we're ready to grow into making this relationship or connection something that not only is mutually beneficial, but is also wholesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with that, thank you for coming by and like being such an amazing guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and like just being such an amazing presence, and you've made my day. And like this season just got better with this interview,
Being a happy
and I'm
dad.
really excited. Man, it's shout out to Noni again, because without her we'd have never met.
Love you, Noni.
Man, yeah, this was amazing, and I'm so thankful. And I would just like, any plugs, social media, all that good stuff you
me, I
wanna
said,
like?
huh? Then I'm supposed to plug. Anyway, so it's funny because many people ask me, like, what's your actual name? So it's Lisa Oduor-Noah. No, it's not because I'm married. It's what I learned is called a double barrel surname. So my name on Instagram is Lisa Oduor. And then on Facebook, it's Lisa Oduor-Noah. You'll find me on everything as Lisa Oduor-Noah. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's
And
who
all
I am.
streaming platforms.
Yep, that's who
Apple
I am.
Music,
Hopefully,
and-
yeah. If there's no hyphen, it's still me.
Yeah,
As long as the name is the same.
Yeah.
All streaming platforms, all the way from Apple Music and Spotify to iHeartRadio.
Nice.
I guess
nice.
so.
Yeah, check
Yeah.
out all her music.
Thank
For
you.
anyone that's listening, you will not be disappointed, I guarantee it. And thank you for listening, and peace. If you'd like to get in touch with the Represented Podcast, feel free to hit up at Represented Podcast on Instagram or email us at representedpodcast@gmail.com. This show is hosted and created by myself, Kanyeki Kamawe. Editing by Lucid and myself. Video directed by James Kamawe. Video editing by myself, Kanyeki Kamawe. Intro music by Lucid and Mari Narciso.